Welcome to MNN El Barrio Firehouse Community Media Center. I'm your host, Yudelka. Thank you for joining us tonight for the special screening of Pepe Savino, two short documentaries directed by Carla Francesca. Carla was born and raised in the Dominican Republic, and she's an award-winning filmmaker who lives in uptown Manhattan. Her short documentary film, Street Vendors, exposes the many issues that street vendors face in New York City in terms of licensing. This particular piece has screened at more than 10 film festivals, including the CUNY Film Festival, the Workers United Film Festival, the Dominican Film Festival in New York, the Hispanic International Film Festival of New Jersey, and the Providence Latin American Film Festival. Her most recent work is a short fiction film named Lorenzo, which premiered at the Dominican Film Festival this year. She is currently pursuing a BFA in film at CUNY, the City College of New York, and works as a production facilitator here at MNN El Barrio Firehouse Community Media Center. So to help me introduce the film, let's all welcome Carla Francesca. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming tonight. You have no idea how happy I am. I'm so nervous, I have to say. I'm so grateful because this is my home, because I work here, and to have the opportunity to present these short films with these amazing artists, Pepe Coronado, Giovanni Savino, for me is an honor. I don't want to say much because I want you guys and the audience to watch the films, and then we can have a further discussion with the artists.
Yes, we can. And then a Q&A after.
And then a Q&A with you, the audience that is present here today, and enjoy the films. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla.
In its basic definition, printmaking is the most democratic art form. Why? Because you don't work only on one original piece. You create multiples of an original piece. So what that does is a couple of things. It lowers the price, and it can be more places at once. So space and time gets more diverse. So you can have prints in different places, different exhibition, and you can reach a bigger audience. My artwork, I will say I have two trajectories, and they come in and out and overlap themselves. My name is Pepe Coronado. I'm from Dominican Republic. I was born in the capital, Santo Domingo. From parents from the middle of the island, an area called El Cibao. Two towns there called La Vega and Bonao. They were close to each other. So I was the first generation born in the city. June 1989, I came to the US, and I came in via Chicago. I came to Chicago because I married an American woman in the art. She went there to study abroad from her university. I moved to the city almost 3 years ago, so it was time to move the studio. My first instinct was to move to try to get a studio in Washington Heights. I had a hard time finding a working space that provide the conditions that we needed for the print studio. Outside the city, I was able to find this shop in East Harlem, which still provide me almost the same fertile ground that I was looking in the Heights. So how many artists we are collaborating and we collaborate with? You know, it's a lot. It's over 40 artists that that I have collaborated recently in the last few years. Some of them, I collaborate with them in different places. About 30 of them had been since I've been here. One of the reasons to move the studio to the city was that too, because I was outside the city, the access was a little more restrictive. So being in East Harlem had been an explosion of that relationship. In terms of challenge, what are the biggest challenge? You know, there are many. The biggest one obviously is money. But things are getting, especially now, the struggle is real. Honestly, I feel the political climate is kidnapping a lot of what we do. It is complicated because now the issue of the support for the arts have gotten complex too, because a lot of institutions are out. There is not a lot of money out there to incubate these projects and invest in these projects that are very important socially. So that creates another difficulty to, you know, to survive or to get funding. So it creates a problem. You know, one of the reasons I do what I do, I want to make this almost clarifying something, you know, because I didn't grow up in New York, right? You know, we knew about New York because we always have somebody, you know what I mean? But I didn't grow up here. So working with the artists that did, you know, so I would never say that I'm a reflection or I can talk for, you know, the neighborhood or not even for Dominican people, you know what I mean? Even though I'm pretty close to what happened, but there are experiences here that Dominican have had that I didn't have. And so in working with people, you know, in this neighborhood, you know, the issue with Harlem and East Harlem, I can never be even a tiny voice for that. But the collective voice can, you know, and sharing those experiences from people that grew up here or that grew up somewhere else, but they know this dynamic, and that's where the beauty comes in, you know. So there is not somebody that is saying it or reflecting it, you know.
I want your eyes almost angry. Angry. Give me angry eyes. Because, yes, more. This is theater. Yes, more. Great. This is great. Hold that. Lovely. Photography for me, it's more a means to an end. In other words, is an intellectual engagement that allows me to perhaps preserve a little bit of a bygone culture, of an oral tradition, but also of emotions, passing emotions. I'm an Italian photographer who's been based in New York for nearly 25 years now. I live on the very northern part of Manhattan, near the Cloister. And I have a small portraiture studio there where I mostly shoot large format portraits. I don't have any stories like, oh, my father gave me a brownie and I started, no. In fact, my father didn't want me to touch his camera when I was a kid. So, you know, eventually a friend of the family, I think, gave me a Polaroid. and I started shooting with that. But I don't have any particularly poetic stories about how I started. Fixing your hair, which is kind of fun if I try and show you, because it's been a passion all my life since I was a kid. 1, 2, 3. Great. One of the things that horrifies me the most in this modern age is the cruel and relentless advancement of technocracy. New technology is continually introduced with the sole scope of reducing the human interaction with the machine. Those thousands of selfies people shoot on their cell phones today are picture files that probably 10 years from now won't be even readable. Okay, let's have a look at what we got. The process behind this kind of photography requires you to dig into the best part of your being human. It's nice, right?
Yes, it's really nice.
As an artisan, as a lover, as a fine practitioner of something you love. And these are the very last films available. You know, they discontinued it in Japan about a year ago, and now you can't buy these anymore. I'm gonna miss them greatly because I think they're great colors, great 1950s, 60s colors. Obviously, working with these cameras, there's another fascinating aspect. You can build up your own systems. You can interact with the machine in ways that the newest technology doesn't allow you to. Negatives, 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 negatives. This place is full of negatives. And what I like really is the fact that these things, you know, they don't require any electricity to exist. You know what I mean? Like a negative like this, I put under a glass, you know, I put a piece of paper on top, you know, photographic paper, I go on the roof, expose it to the sun for a few seconds, and I make a print. In other words, I don't need JPEGs, TIFFs, PNGs, computers, software. It's just a very organic way of doing it, I suppose. Look, I never went to photography school. I never had that privilege. I would have loved to. I had the privilege of starting my career at a time when there were still mentors around. So I assisted for many years a marvelous man, a British man, who was a great photographer and a senior cameraman at 60 Minutes and CBS News. And basically I learned everything I know about lighting, about shooting, about the editorial sense behind the picture, which is certainly sometimes even more important than the lighting, because I learned from him by doing it, by working. In retrospect, I would have loved to have been able to go to a school and, you know, have all this equipment at my disposal. But at the same time, you know, I was happy to be employed in a proper job since a very early age, and slowly making mistakes, you know, being told off sometimes because you've done the wrong thing, you messed up something, etc. Well, that was the way I was able to learn photography and cinematography in my life. And I'm grateful for it. I tell something to my students, that no matter how much you've applied yourself technically to photography, to you know, to all there is behind taking a picture with a camera. You know, a good picture is a gift. It's not going to happen because you're a good photographer. Being a good photographer helps. But that good picture is a gift where the universe is basically channeling something through you and your camera and your subjects, and you get the picture. But it's not because of your ego. It's not because of the interviews or the Emmys or the social and corporate and financial validation you've obtained in your life. You'd be surprised, but not many people seem to realize that. That's why a good friend of mine once said to me after I took her portrait, but Giovanni, I've never seen anything like this. Photography is your meditation. She was right.
Congratulations, Carla, for such a great work, precise and directly to the point, allowing us to have a taste of the essence of these two amazingly talented artists. Pepe Savino, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We honor your presence. I'd like to start this special conversation with Carla. Why you chose them? Why Pepe? Why Savino?
That's a great question. But before I answer that, I want to say thank you to my crew, part of my crew who is joining us tonight, Jose Ponce, my cinematographer, who is in the audience.
Great
And
job.
yes, and Oscar Giovanni, who was my sound recordist. They did an amazing job. Thank you guys. I love you. You know, filmmaking is collaborative.
Yes.
You know, art is about collaboration. So obviously I cannot do this by myself. So
No.
I'm very grateful to have them in my life. Yes. So why Pepe, why Savino? I would say curiosity. I wanted to go to their studios. You know, I knew them from before. And I said, you know, I really, really want to go to their studios and see how they work. And not only that, I wanted to record them while they were in the process of making art. Print and print.
Yes.
To
Right.
type of
Print
things.
and print.
Yes.
Totally, totally. So,
And I wanted to, you know, I'm a film student, and I wanted to bring that with me, that footage, and show in class. And tell my classmates, look guys,
it's amazing.
we have
talented people.
amazing artists within our communities, and we need to highlight their work. Because they have been doing so much that I think this is a way for us, for me, to honor what they do every day, you know? And I met Pepe through Dominican Proyecto Gráfica, another
Yes.
collaboration between Dominican artists.
Yes.
I went to an exhibition. I met him through my friend and compadre, Alex Guerrero.
Yes.
And since then, I mean,
Yeah.
we have been friends.
Yes.
So I'm pretty honored for that. And Savino, Giovanni, we met through amazing females, Susie Santana, Josefina Baez, who he has been photographing for a long time. So I knew them, and I followed them on social media, and I was like, wow, I need to know who took these pictures because this is beyond amazing. And then I remember one day, my husband told me, oh, look, Giovanni, he contacted me because he wants to invite us to his studio for photo shoot. I was pregnant with my first daughter.
Very pregnant.
Yeah.
Yes, I was super mega pregnant. And I was just so happy because it was like, for me, going back in time, something that never, like I haven't done this for so long. I remember analogic cameras from my childhood, but digital pictures are like everywhere, you know, in your phone, whatever. So I was very excited. And yeah, I think after that moment, I fell in love with this guy.
And then there's also that specialty of this tangible thing, like the old-fashioned way of doing things that we have lost for such a long time.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It is really interesting about collaboration because it's really powerful. My question goes to you. How do you choose the artists you collaborate with?
In a couple of different ways, mainly organically. People I meet out in events, activities related to art, and then if I start working with you, then you will bring artists that.
So it's the same collaboration within a collaboration.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
forming
And one
more.
thing about collaboration is that not every artist likes it or gets it. And so, some artists are very reserved, individual practice, and which is fine. But the ones that do like the collaborative aspect opens up a whole new dynamic because it's about sharing.
It's about.
So you have to be willing to give and more than you will get, usually. So if you do, then you'll enjoy the process.
Totally. And my next question goes to you. So open your eye, angry eyes. You started the documentary with a really hooked, catchy line about asking your model to really be present. And was like coming from a theater background, we know the importance of being present, being in the moment. So then it's like pretty much you asking her that, it takes me into what is it that you ask for your models when they're coming to your studio?
Again, like we've been saying all along, collaboration, but not only collaboration. I don't make the portrait. We both make the portrait.
Totally.
The camera is this, cumbersome but rather nice object between us, which we basically ignore. I take care of it because by now, after so many decades of doing it, I do it automatically. Boom, put the film in, pull the slide out, and stop, tick, tock, boom. But you know what I mean? Like the actual portrait, the strength of the portrait, it's not something that I can elicit. I can suggest, but even in suggesting, I need to follow what I perceive from the person in front of my lens.
You mentioned theater. It's theater.
Suggest a theatrical action.
Amazing. Awesome. Carla, what was the process? How did you convince them to really collaborate again? I do feel that's going to be the word that we're going to use throughout the entire conversation, because at the end of the day, you as a filmmaker, you are really asking to collaborate with them to pretty much highlight the process that they do and pretty much bring it to us in the screen. So how was?
I don't have to convince anybody here. They are pretty open, They want people to come to their studios and see what they do and how they do it, and people to learn how to do it. Because it's not about, holding my knowledge. It's about inviting people to see how everything is done and how we can perpetuate these art forms in a digital era where, technocracy is killing it, like
My enemy.
It is totally.
You can take, you can take digital pictures you can design in a computer, but the process of touching things, I didn't have to convince anybody. I was like, Pepe? Giovanni?
When?
Can I go? Yeah, of course. When?
Oh.
Yes, and it was
Yes.
super fun. I was thinking the other day that I did both films while I was pregnant.
Yes. Oh yes, I remember.
my second child.
Yes.
That's
So
amazing.
it was really, it
Yeah,
was.
that was scary when I opened the door. It's like
but
I'm in a third floor. And I get your bag. No, I'm getting your bags.
But you know, if I may add to what Carla Francesca just said, you see, as I also come and I have a long experience in filmmaking and I worked for CBS for many years, etc. Aside from her kindness and your wonderfulness, which we both were well aware of prior
Right.
to her calling us, I must say that I was very critically looking at her at work, and she's fantastic.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
No,
That's
she's
great.
truly fantastic because she's got all the parameters, and don't get me wrong, not just the technical parameters, but also the human rapport parameter, the editorial parameter right. And I think she's a natural, and I think she's gonna go a long,
Yeah,
long
yeah, yeah.
way.
Thank you so much. Oh,
That's
Yeah.
a nice
This is the-
compliment.
Yeah.
Am I getting red?
Yeah.
But honestly, for me, I felt so privileged, you know, because I was capturing this moment. Giovanni doing the pictures. Pepe.
Yes.
Pepe actually, he showed us the whole process of how you make a print. Yeah.
No, but it's like Savino said, it was, you know, oh, we're gonna do an interview. I don't know what
Yeah,
she's saying
this-
with that, right?
just let it
she's just coming
flow.
to talk to me, and then they show up with all this equipment and all these lights, and I'm like, uh-oh. And then she's like, oh no, you can wait for me over there, and we're gonna set up, and you know,
You're
we're
like, "Set
testing all
up."
this stuff, and I was not used to that. So, to your point that she's good because she have to make me collaborate because I don't know what to do.
Really?
No, stand this way and say this. And many times we started talking in Spanish. Oh no, sorry.
Go
Let's start
back,
again.
yes,
It's supposed to be in English,
In
you know.
English.
So there was a lot of moments that, you know, because you become a coach, right? Yeah, she have to direct
We were
us.
comfortable, I guess.
Yeah. So creating that environment of comfort is very important. So.
What inspires you?
What inspired me, you know, kind of going back to your question of collaboration, right? So I told you about how I meet artists and find artists, but who are they? So you know, my interest is you know, like in the film we talk a little bit about printmaking being this democratic art form. At the same time, it's very sociopolitically active. So it's usually what attracts me about prints and what motivates me is that medium reflects your time and your community and what you're around. So you know, working with the artists that are creating works that are very important for us to define American art or American society or American identity from this diverse perception, this diverse voice.
And seeing the different points of view
Yeah, exactly.
within the
More
collaboration.
importantly, showing the diversity within each community because most of the time we can get caught in preaching to the choir, but we have a lot of different things to say. So that's the motivation, is how to create, and these spaces are very hard in our communities because communities with money have a lot of resources. We don't have a lot of resources, right? Like if you look at the Dominican Washington High community, we don't have a community center, we don't have a museum, we don't have an art school, we don't have these places where ideas can cultivate and explode and expand and play. So it's very important that these kind of independent spaces that we can share that. And we try to, beside the print, part of the idea is to bring different disciplines. Like we have worked a lot with writer. We have done poetry readings and documentary showing, because we have to feed each other, right? And that's the idea. That's what motivated me, is how to create a feeding ground.
Great.
In el barrio.
Yes,
In
yeah,
el
exactly.
barrio.
You have to come from inside.
Okay.
You have to come from inside. That's why I said that my first interest was to get a studio in Washington Heights. The condition didn't allow it.
Work within the
That
community.
was my first, yeah. And it's another big kind of social criticism why it didn't happen up there, that we might touch on that later. But but it's important the art come from the heart of the community and reflects that.
Very important. Savino, let's talk about technocracy. Can we please?
Are you sure?
Yes, please.
Do we
You
have enough
elaborate?
time? No, I'll be brief. Look, as I said in the documentary, technocracy, which is basically, let's define technocracy. What's technocracy? Technocracy is, a state of the world, based on technology. Of course, there's people behind the technology and people in front of the technology, okay? Usually the people behind the technology decide what the people in front of the technology, what kind of technology they're gonna use, how are they gonna use it, how much it's gonna cost to use it, and how often they're gonna upgrade it, etc., etc. So this state of things in itself, there would be nothing wrong with this. But really, I think we've reached the point where, you are forced to use technology to stay in touch with your friends, to have a social life, to work, to, and I'm totally adverse to this. I don't like it. I think it's a very, very understudied phenomenon, which could lead in time to terrible developments at intellectual and civic, social, economic level in our society. So, I'm okay with technology. Of course, when I worked for television and even in my photography occasionally, I use the latest technology. But technology requires you to be informed about it, to use it for a reason, and by no means abuse it or be abused by it. Okay? I mean, the whole thing then turns itself into a political discourse where, in the Dominican Republic, our kids want to register for university, and the only way to do it is through a computer. Now, where do they live? They live in una casa de campo, with no internet. There's no computer available.
They don't even know sometimes
Not
how
even
to
a
use
cell
it.
phone got signal over there. So I say, excuse me, couldn't you just go to the university and fill up a piece of paper? No.
This is the way we're
abuse.
doing it.
Technocracy abusing people.
People. Totally.
A simple example. I could give you 10,000.
I think it's important to know here. He said in the Dominican Republic, our kids. He's from Italy, but he's very connected to the
Well, I'm
island.
married to a Dominican woman who's, to me, more important than photography.
That's nice.
Maribel over there. And, I lived a lot in the Dominican Republic. I produced and shot 4 documentaries about Dominican music and culture and religion. And so I have some knowledge of the place, which, having been born in Italy, also I perceive in a slightly, not so slightly, but quite in a different way from a North American person, because it reflects in developmental percourse what I've seen happening 10, 15, 20 years ago in Italy. You see, both countries still have a very strong North American influence.
politically, culturally,
Economically,
etc.,
yeah,
etc. But there's a time gap in the development of all
Right.
this
That is
between
correct.
Italy, because in Italy it started right after the Second World War, 1945. In the Dominican Republic, cell phones 20 years ago, no, not really. But it's been quicker in the Dominican Republic. I'll give you a quick example. One of my documentaries is about misterios, a popular religion between here, New York, Dominican Republic, and Haiti. Okay, so there was an in-depth investigation about the world of voodoo, of popular religion, which I've done about 10 years ago now. I would not be able to produce the same documentary today because you see a lot of the truly genuine, characteristic of that scene I recorded in my film.
Change,
Gone.
right?
Gone. Yeah, they're gone.
Mutated into
Totally.
different things, but virtually gone.
From the cloud.
Right. The clouds. Thanks.
Everything is in the cloud. Carla, do you have any anecdote about the process when you were shooting these two documentaries?
Besides that, I was
share?
mega pregnant.
Besides being pregnant.
I mean, not really. Nothing like it was.
Everything
I
ran
enjoyed so
smooth.
much that I didn't want to. I didn't want to leave them. And I remember that I had my questions, my guideline. My background is journalism and public relations. I study in Dominican Republic in La UAS, and I come prepared with my questions. But as soon as these two gentlemen start talking, it's like, tell me more. I want to know more.
You
Forget.
totally,
let me forget
you
about
totally
this.
scratched the
Yes.
questions.
Yes, and even my crew, I remember Oscar, who is in the audience, he was totally fascinated with Giovanni because he's into photography, but he's into analogical photography as well. And Jose, who has been working with me in other projects, he's always amazed. And he asked me, how do you know these people?
Yeah.
Well, you meet someone,
Right.
and
yeah.
that someone introduces to another someone, and a someone, and a someone, and even my supervisor says, Carla knows everybody. She knows everybody.
And not only that, but you keep the connection,
I think that's important.
because that's important.
I think that's important.
Totally.
I like human relations. I like talking to people, but I also like to listen. And filmmaking is about sharing stories. And what make Pepe and Savino, Giovanni, interesting characters is that they have so much to say. So many stories.
And you're just so ready to listen.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
That's amazing.
Definitely. Definitely.
Since you were so busy collaborating with other artists, how do you work in your own projects?
It's
How
hard.
do you?
It's very difficult. But there are two practices that go hand in hand. My personal practice and the collaborative project. So it's hard, but they both are as important to me. So I have to navigate that space, and sometimes I neglect one for a while when the other one is happening, and go back to that. So it's difficult but important. They're two different things, and sometimes I'm a collaborator too. So and my work can slide into the collaborative part. And although I believe in collective voice, sometimes that can be a little confusing, because if it can sound like it's only collective voice, we all have our individual practice. We are always coming up with our own expression of what we do. But I think that when we have the ability to have a designated space to speak collectively, I think that's where I feel we're stronger, right? So, and when we talk about today with this political climate coming from Dominican Republic, which is having the same political climate as is happening here, you know, individual voices, I can make comments, I can say sing, but that's always going to be my opinion. But when we get a group of 5, 10, 15 artists talking about it, then that's diversity of expression. To me, that's when the whole message is complete. You know, like we did a couple of collaboration with Haitian artists. And it was like understanding the issue, because we can talk about being cool with Haitians, but if we're not collaborating with them, we're not saying enough, right? So that's when collaboration, when the collective voice really hits the point. So that's why it's important.
Yeah. Giovanni, why do you believe a good photography is a gift, a good photo? I love to hear more about it.
You know, because I've been shooting for a lifetime. You know, sometimes you shoot for a client, so basically you need to fulfill their vision of something. Some other times you work for yourself, and you have your own vision, and you need to fulfill that. Of course, there's always a technical aspect to all this. But you see, especially lately, a lot of younger photographers are very focused on the new camera, the new light, the new lens, the new this, the new. And you know, that's something we all go through. But totally honest, out of my own experience, that special photograph, it's not something you can summon. You can try and channel it, but it is indeed a gift that comes from somewhere else, somewhere mysterious, somewhere undefinable. It is, often a combined energy in the room between me behind the camera and you in front of the camera. But you can't just say, okay, I'm gonna make a masterpiece today. No, you can do your best, but sometimes it just doesn't come out. And usually the reasons for it not to come out are not technical reasons, they're emotional reasons.
Emotional.
It's literally like a performance, like, I shall say even a painting or writing, writing a text. Those are more confined to your own, imagination, or your own dealing with yourself. Whereas in photography, there's always a subject, another human being or more in front of your camera. But it's really a matter of summoning some magic chord.
It's kind of connecting with that energy.
Right on the keyboard of the universe. And boom, and that sounds damn good. And we got it, guys. It's a wrap.
Great. Have you had any piece that have resonated really like within you, that you're like, that portrait I took that one time, that is special experience? It goes for both of you.
Look, working with large format, it's not like digital. In other words, I don't take 7,000 pictures in a portrait session. I take usually 20, 30. If it's a very sort of difficult client and they've got time, I might take 35, but that's tops, okay? So I feel very grateful if I discover, and then remember, it's not that I just, pull it out and take a look at it. No, they pile up, I keep shooting, I keep talking, I keep listening, I keep, trying to get in touch with something bigger than me and the situation itself. And then in the dark room is the rest of the process, which is something that doesn't exist with digital photography. So all these stages lead somewhere, lead to having a choice of 30 pictures, let's say. If there's one which feels special, I feel lucky, I feel blessed.
Great. We're going to start now with questions from the audience. And go ahead, please.
Hello. Hi, my name is Moses Ross. I'm an artist. I also work with Pepe, a member of the Dominican Carla, and I have a couple of questions, but I'm going to start with Carla, since she's these films is a collaborative process, and also Pepe is also working in a collaborative process, and Savino also, when he's engaging with taking pictures, person that collaboration between the subject and him. It kind of unites all three, the theme of collaboration. So I wanted to sort of, for you to elaborate about, the collaboration that you feel that you're getting to talk to other, to artists, and how that, direction that's going for you. Okay? And then, I'm going to just give everybody, I'm going to be equal, everybody gets a question. And then in terms of with Pepe, which I work with Pepe, all the time. So I think that he should elaborate a little bit about the printmaking process in terms of being sort of like an equalizer for artists, because as artists, work in different mediums, painting, sculpture, etc. And then when they're working in printmaking, that's like one medium that unites them, and he can sort of elaborate on that.
Thank you.
Okay, and then with Savino, in terms of the, about the technology and stuff. Now everybody has a phone. I mean, everybody has a camera. Before, remember when the Japanese were like taking pictures all over the place, and now everybody has a camera. So I mean, I don't see that being curtailed. Is something that we're going to have to figure out, and maybe you can address what that will be. But
I'm not sure I understand the question.
About that we're gonna. This is something that's here to stay in terms of the technology and the camera, so that that's something that we what would you think would be a way for people to sort of look at that, instead of just the selfies, which is just a narcissistic thing to do, but to go beyond that. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Carla.
I think I would like to answer to the first question in regards to collaboration pretty briefly. As I said before, in arts, there's no way you can, at least in the filmmaking, you cannot do anything alone. You need people around you to help you with camera, in the pre-production process, in the post-production process, editing, coloring, sound, everything. But I do believe that it's not only about having a crew, but also to gather with other people with the same interests. And that's actually happening right now with a group of female filmmakers. I don't want to talk a lot about that, but yeah, we have been talking for a while. We should continue, this journey together in order to raise our voices and keep doing stuff, because the most important thing is that we do stuff.
We do.
When somebody says, yeah, I have this project, and next year you ask, oh, so what happened with that project? I'm still thinking about it, like, no. Yeah. Just do it. And then from that process, you will learn something. It probably won't be a masterpiece, as you said before, or I don't know, whatever. But you did it. And there is a pleasure in doing stuff like that, and saying, okay, yes, I did this, let me move on, but I have people around me who are going to continue this journey with me. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think in terms of what Moses has about the printing itself, if following up on that, being the equalizer for the collaboration that we do is that we do bring artists that come from a wide range of practices, like he said, sculptors and photographers and painters and different disciplines. So when we work in prints, a lot of them don't have to know how to make a print. That space is a shared moment where we share those abilities. Like when you talk about your crew, you have specialties in sound and light and so on, and we do too.
Right.
So that's the magic of the collaboration. The magic not in the sense that it comes from somewhere else, but in the fact that it's a creative thing, where we share those expertise and those ways to take your concept and make it happen. And by you moving from your discipline to an unknown discipline, you have
Creates
to
a
be
whole
flexible,
Right.
right?
new
Yes.
level.
And so we have to develop that space of comfort. I have to know what you want. You have to trust what I do. And that happened by a lot of dialogues. I mean, we have a lot of moments where we're not making art, we're just hanging. And that hanging out creates connections.
Yes.
That
We have to
connection,
learn to
yes.
read each other, right? To create that space of let creativity flourish. But it comes with setting up that groundwork.
And now I shall try to answer Mr. Moses. You mentioned, correct me if I got it wrong, but you mentioned in the past we had all these Japanese clicking everything, and now everybody's got like a camera constantly. Yes, okay. To be extremely concise, I could expand on this until tomorrow morning. But I mean, because there's various aspects of this that basically brought to a disruption of an entire industry, brought to a completely different approach to a tactile type of art, and basically shifted many different paradigms from technical ones to conceptual one in the space of just 2 or 3 years. Okay, but I'll just say this: when I was young, I believed in the possibility for popular revolution. In other words, a popular change of the status quo. Experience and a certain cynicism as I get older brought me now today to believe in individual revolutions. To exemplify this, I'll just say that if you don't feel that you personally can endorse the fact that 99.9% of the people eat hamburgers, don't eat hamburgers. Find a different way to eat. Find a different way to take photographs. Besides, although the photographic process is somewhat similar, but these things you take with not only phones, but digital cameras are not actually photographs. You see, during the recording of this, interview, we talked at length. Obviously, we couldn't fit it all in the documentary, but we talked at length about the importance of the tactile quality of this kind of photography. In other words, this is something that, if you're my client, eventually I'll give it to you, and you'll make a use of it, and you'll put on a wall, perhaps, and perhaps your great-grandchildren will be still able to see it on that wall. So it's like apples and oranges, really. We're talking about images, we're talking about creating images, but I don't think that digital images are on the same level of, say, humanitarian not importance, but humanitarian's relevance than a physical picture.
Nice.
In other words, I will say, I mean, it's like the fact that people eat fast food, that doesn't mean that you have to eat fast food, right?
Right. It's the time now in photography, like in everyday life, to find alternatives, valuing those in the community with whom we are able to establish a discourse. Small things. Small things. The big things are already out of control. Because when people don't visit each other anymore, but only communicate through Facebook,
Or texting.
Yeah.
Or
okay, I was one of the first, I'll just give you this example. I was one of the first guys on Instagram when it came out. I had stupid hopes for Instagram to become really a new kind of platform and collaboration. I was thinking in Paris, the cafe, discussing, forget it. Instagram turned into a commercial enterprise almost immediately. But at one point, as I had several followers, a word I hate, followers. Hello, followers. Anyway, as I had several thousand followers, I sent out a message on my Instagram. I said, okay, guys, I mostly work analogically. Of course, I scan and put the picture here, and you press that like button, whatever. But let's do something. Send me a picture to P.O. Box N, Giovanni Savino, P.O. Box N, New York, 10034. Okay? One picture.
You are too excited, Giovanni.
From France.
We have to.
One picture from France. Sorry, I ran out
to
of
wrap
time.
it up,
we
Giovanni.
Wrap
have
it
to
up.
really conclude.
Thank
we
you
have
so
to wrap it. Thank
much.
you so much for being here. Thank you once again, Carla Francesca, Pepe Coronado, and Giovanni Savino for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure. Thank you for the audience, and thank you, MNN, like El Barrio Firehouse Community Media Center. It was a pleasure to be your host tonight. I'm Yudelka Hire. Until next time.